And good evening. We are broadcasting from Fat Joe's tonight for the first of hopefully many Marian University coaches shows here, highlighting and promoting all the great things going on with Marian University Sabre Athletics. I am Wade Bates, and it's going to be a fun show today. Got a lot of people joining us. Going to talk with Athletic Director Jason Bartelt here in just a couple of seconds. Also, we'll talk a little Marian University cross country and track. We've got some Marian men's soccer as they're winding down their season. Craig Peltonen's going to be joining us, and we'll preview the Marian men's hockey program as they get ready to kick off their season this weekend with a home-and-home with St. Norbert. But first, Jason Bartelt, Athletic Director at Marian University. Jason, thank you so much for joining us.
Oh, thank you.
Hey, a lot of things going on at Marian University, aren't there, right now, as we kind of are in transition between the fall sports and the winter sports?
Yeah, it definitely is a busy time of year, and really looking forward to this show. And like you said, hopefully many, many more. We've been working on this for a couple of years, so glad that you're here and glad that we're kicking this off to talk about all the happenings at Marian.
Before we talk about Marian athletics in general, let's talk about yourself. A longtime baseball coach at Marian. You had the athletic director tag as well added a few years back. Well, this year you've decided to step away from the baseball side of it and take over athletics full-time. Can you talk a little bit about that and what went into that decision for you?
I think the biggest thing is trying to juggle both, and I never want to take away from the baseball program. I mean, that is definitely a full-time job, and you want to give your whole attention to the entire program and on all the student athletes, and not just in practice, but everything that goes on to being part of a student athlete with their living and academics and athletics. Just wanted to give that opportunity to a head coach that could really devote his entire attention to that.
You can talk about the head coach that you hired?
Jordan Badinger was an outstanding baseball player at Ripon, so we got a Red Hawk in the Marian program, but he was assistant coach for 4 years, and he had various roles around the university, and he did a great job for us.
Now, Jason, athletic department in general right now, where do you think the Marian athletic department is?
We're up and coming, and again, if you look at the track record over the last 2 to 3 years, just looking to always add growth. You know, we've added sports, added opportunities, added some facilities, so we're just, again, I always tell our student athletes that are prospective that are coming in on visits, I don't think there's another athletic department going in the direction that we're going in.
With a university the size of Marian, why is it important to grow the athletic department?
You want to enroll opportunities, I guess, or look for opportunities to grow. You're always looking for enrollment. I kind of mentioned that a little bit ago. Looking for other ways to get more students on campus and into Fond du Lac and provide them an opportunity to enhance their academics while they're in university.
And it's one of those things, Jason, we talk about. Lacrosse is coming in. I got a chance, to talk to Reed Mayberry a few times about him starting his program up. What are some of the things, when you're a coach in here and you're starting a new program, from your perspective, what are some of the things that you can say, hey, this is why you should come to Marian and be a part of Sabre Athletics?
Again, like I talked about, I think there's a lot of potential within our department, within the university. Again, you look at some of the facilities we have with the softball, baseball, and soccer fields, Lentz Fieldhouse, and we just want to continue that momentum. And again, it's just adding lacrosse and men's volleyball. You're just looking to keep that momentum going.
I've talked to you a little bit about lacrosse and volleyball being added over the last couple of years, and I'll talk about lacrosse right now because they're in a spot where you're about a year and a half out until you hit the field for the first time in January, February of 2018, which would be the next academic school year for the university. But how does that process work? How does it work going, the idea we want to add a sport and then now let's make it a reality? What's the process like? What's the timetable like to do something like that?
Yeah, and I think we've done it very well with adding the last couple sports, and we're doing it right now in lacrosse. I think the first thing you look at what opportunities out there that we don't have, and I think men's volleyball, men's lacrosse are the last two, but there are sports where there's not enough universities for high school students to attend and live their dream or participate in those sports they have a passion for. So it starts there, and then again, you look at your facilities. Where can we host those venues and play and practice, and how does it fit the school? And in both cases, they're doing very well with the recruiting side of it. And then the last thing, I think you try to get into conferences, and that's the one thing with the men's volleyball and lacrosse. We're kind of in some standalone conference. We're not into our overall NAC umbrella with all the other traditional sports, and but we are in those conferences and being able to compete and get automatic qualifiers in the national tournament. So those are all kind of
And I think there's a little bit of buzz with lacrosse, too, adding that. And I've had a few people ask me about it simply because you get into the Fox Valley area, there's not a lot of lacrosse, at least high school-sponsored lacrosse. You get to the Milwaukee area, the Madison area, such like that. It's growing. I know Illinois has got some lacrosse programs down there, and then you go out east. So, I mean, the fact that you're adding it here in Fond du Lac means you're kind of really raising the profile and expanding it out for Marian as when it comes to the recruiting base and who maybe Reed looks to bring on campus. And it might be a student that maybe wouldn't have looked at Marian if he didn't have lacrosse.
Right, correct. And that's the thing. Same thing with men's volleyball and lacrosse. I mean, we've had students actually driving past Marian to attend some of our rival schools, Lakeland, MSOE, Concordia, Wisconsin. So that also goes into it. Let's try to keep some of these new and upcoming lacrosse players local instead of having them travel past us or have to fly out east or west to play the sport they love.
And do you see it maybe one of those things as well where when people locally see that Marian University has added lacrosse, you might see some more things pop up, which also could maybe make the local feeder for the athletic department grow even more?
Yeah, correct. I think you look at we have tremendous support with all of our camps, and I think lacrosse will be right there with it and trying to get some of the local youth involved. And, I mean, like you said, it's expanding and it's working its way north. You see Milwaukee and Madison with some pockets ready, some in the Fox Valley. But, again, let's start this thing in Fond du Lac, not just at Marian.
You know, it's one of those things where I think, talking to Coach Mayberry, when he told me that your season kind of started in January into February, I'm thinking Wisconsin. I'm thinking, January can sometimes get a little chilly, and he said the lacrosse guys are tough. They're used to that thing, that kind of weather, and they actually play from cold into the spring.
Yeah. It's almost the opposite of football. Football, you start in the heat and you work to the cold, like high school football playoffs are going now. And with college, it's lacrosse, it's the opposite. You start in the cold and you work into the warm. Very similar to baseball.
Nationally, when you look at the Division III level for athletics, are there certain sports that teams are adding or that universities are adding? We look at lacrosse, men's volleyball here. Are there sports that people are adding maybe on a higher rate than others across the country?
I think those are probably the two biggest ones. I think you see a lot more, even some men's and women's hockey possibly, but I really think men's volleyball and lacrosse are the two booming sports right now. Our men's volleyball, I think we're up to 20 teams in our conference, so you're just seeing, and they're all teams from across different conferences to make the 20, but that's what you're just seeing. There's just a big boom in a couple of these sports.
You mentioned hockey. I know looking at your hockey league with the Sabres are in, and they're had next year Trines coming in. I know the women's side, a couple of current schools within the league are adding women's hockey, and that's just expanding as well. And Marian also added, I guess you can call it, quote, club hockey this year as well for the first time, which is bringing students on campus.
Yeah, correct. Last year we had kind of a varsity reserve program, and this year we kind of separated that and gave them more of experience, give them some more travel and some conference identity that way, and went to the club. And I just heard they're ranked third nationally. I don't know how accurate that is, but I just got that across my desk today. So if that's the case, we're doing a great job.
And what's the difference? Maybe somebody's not familiar with it. What is the difference between the traditional varsity hockey that Marian has sponsored for many, many years and the club hockey? What's the difference?
I think the biggest one is just not associated with the NCAA. We're in the men's, so we have to follow all their rules, guidelines, things like that. In the club is more of just how we run things. It falls under our umbrella with the NCAA, but we wouldn't need to do that.
Sure, and it's one of those things where maybe kids are a little younger coming in with the club hockey right out of high school, because a lot of times if you look at the roster that Coach Gwynn has, it's kids that have been playing juniors or playing somewhere else before they come to Marian.
Yeah, hockey is such, especially the men's side. Women's isn't as much, but yes, you're correct. The men's come out of hockey. The high school players will go to the club side, and they just didn't go to the club opportunity.
Numbers-wise, athletics at Marian University, I mean, you have strong numbers when it comes to the student body base with student athletes, don't you?
Correct. We're just under 400 this year, and every year we've been growing up for about 25, 30, 35 every year. So we are keeping growing and raising that bar.
Where does that compare to other schools in the NAC?
I would guess we're probably right in the middle. You have the Auroras, the Benedictines, Concordia, Wisconsin just have a lot more sport offerings than what we do. But again, we're not on the low end either. We have a lot more sport offerings than some of the Edgewoods and the MSOEs, Lakelands. And
you mentioned that other schools offer more sports. Is that something you're always looking at, adding more sports on the horizon? You mentioned just added lacrosse and club hockey and men's volleyball over the last couple of years. I mean, that's a lot. I mean, is there anything else that you're kind of keeping your eye on that you can talk about that?
I think football always comes to mind, and there's a couple others. But again, you look at facilities and you look at some of the other things that we have on campus. You got to make sure the resources are there, because you want to make sure you want to give those student athletes a quality experience. So we want to make sure we have that foundation set before we add other sports.
Talk with Marian Athletic Director Jason Bartelt in the very first Marian University Coaches Show here at Fat Joe's. Come on out. We're going to be taping on various Monday nights throughout the winter sports season for the rest of the year. It should be a great time to kind of promote athletics. We invite people to come out and enjoy the show, right?
Yep, absolutely. This has kind of been a dream of mine for the last 2 to 3 years, so I was excited to see this actually become a reality tonight.
Jason, you mentioned facilities. facilities. When you walk on the Marian campus, when I've walked on the Marian campus, you guys have some great facilities. Let's start of all talk with baseball. Herbaker Field, obviously there's some renovations coming soon with the Northwoods League coming, but Herbaker, Lenz Fieldhouse, even Smith Field. I mean, you have some pretty high-end facilities when it comes to Division III athletics.
Yeah, correct. I think all those venues you talked about, and even Blue Line out there with the double rinks A and B, basically, yeah, our student athletes have quality experiences when they're here with the facilities.
NAC-wise, Marian feels a good fit. This is a great league for Marian to be in.
Absolutely. I was just looking, even at the football league in the NAC, and we don't have football, and I just looking at the races, and it's incredible, incredibly tough conference, and when we switch from the LMC to the NAC, it's brought our level of play up on a daily basis, and you and I have talked about that before. We're tested day in and day out. There's no easy win on the schedule, and again, it's made our student athletes better.
Well, Jason, you brought it up. People always ask about football because that's one of those things where it's great to have, but there's obviously a lot of capital and there's a lot of things that go in to starting a football program here. Many schools in the NAC, you know about how many in the
Seven.
NAC? Seven schools in the NAC have football, and that's kind of a long-term thing. You can't just flip the switch and say, hey, we're going to add football next season. It's one of those, you have to have a long-term plan to get that thing going.
Yep, absolutely. And I think it could be done, but again, there's a lot of things that need to be in place, and I think it's been looked at. I think our current president, Dr. Marian, will look at it, but it will be. It has to be the right time, the right fit for us.
And we mentioned Herbaker Field, one of the premier baseball facilities in the state of Wisconsin. I think you have Miller Park, you have Fox City Stadium. Concordia's got a pretty good facility there as well, but Marian and Herbaker Field has to be one of the better facilities in the state of Wisconsin. You have some big renovations coming. The Northwoods League coming to the campus of Marian University in Fond du Lac. How big is that for your university, and what does it mean for the area as well?
Yeah, I think it's incredible, and can't say enough about the partner that we have in the Wisconsin Timber Rattlers. I know their president. I've known their president for a long time, Rob Zerjav, and I think that's what made it fit the most is just the partner we're going in this with. They do it every day. They've done it for years. They've done it successfully, and I'm just looking forward to that partnership.
No, it should be a good thing, and it'll also expose people to your campus as
Absolutely.
well. People will be coming on your campus for how many games? 40 games maybe a year?
36.
Something like that. 36 games a year that people will be exposed to Marian, and who knows who shows up at Marian to watch those games.
Correct.
And they may end up being a student here and maybe a student athlete when they see the facilities that if they're a baseball player that, hey, come play at Marian, and you're going to have a indoor practice. The Lenz Fieldhouse in the state of Wisconsin, what other universities have facilities like that?
That have their own? Zero. We are the only one.
And that's used for more than just baseball, correct?
Yeah, I think every sport is in there, and they should. I mean, I want that thing booked from 8 a.m. until 10 or 11 o'clock at night, and it is. Every sport, intramurals, even just our students come out, throw frisbees, footballs, whatever they want around. It just gives them another space that they can utilize.
Well, Jason, I appreciate coming down to Fat Joe's for our inaugural coaches show here at Fat Joe's in downtown Fond du Lac. And we're going to talk to some of your fine coaches. It's going to be fun over the next few months, kind of getting to know what's going on with their program and hopefully promoting some success. I know a lot of the coaches are putting a lot of time and effort into their programs, and it's going to be fun.
Yeah, I'm extremely proud of our staff and looking forward to hear what they have to say about their programs and our student athletes. Very proud of them.
Marian Athletic Director Jason Bartelt. We're going to talk Marian cross country and also maybe a little bit of track and field as well, as we are at Fat Joe's for the Marian University Sabre Coaches Show on the Marian Sports Network.
They said I couldn't dream. Called me a piece of trash and swore that's all I'd ever be. Said a bottle couldn't see the ocean. Give up. Go back to the dumpster. But I didn't listen. I made my way. And now, I am what I've always wanted to be.
And welcome back to Fat Joe's in Fond du Lac for the Marian University Coaches Show here on the Marian Sports Network. Right now we're going to talk a little bit of Marian cross country and track with head coach Corey Zimmerman. Coach, how you doing here today?
Doing well.
Thank you so much for coming in. Now, cross country season winding down for both the men and the women. Can I just talk a little bit about your season so far?
We started off kind of rough, a little slow, but it was due to the weather and the tough competition we were up against. Very young team. We don't have anyone over the age of a sophomore, so we're all freshmen and sophomores. And just we came in and had a lot of tough weather. Started out really hot. That's never easy to run in. And then we had a couple days where the courses were so rough from the rain and stuff that we were just running through basically a pig pen.
Now, this is basically, it's been a rebirth of the cross country and the track program at Marian University. You had it 20 years ago, and it kind of went away, and maybe last 4 years or so they brought it back. Just you've joined, of course, this is your second year here at Marian, and how has it been since you took over and trying to build numbers here in Marian? What is your philosophy on that?
It's been a really eye-opening experience. I mean, started off the season when I got here with 3. Last year was a great season. I love the athletes I had, and we got twice as many, actually more than twice as many this year now. It's just been, I mean, it's been tough. A lot of the kids coming in that I'm recruiting, they want to be on a bigger team, but now that our size is improved, I think it'll get a lot easier from here on. Can
you talk about some of the men and women, the student athletes that you have running for you here this fall?
Yeah, our top runners right now are Alyssa Zulke, Jacob Leiden, Isaac Konjerski, and our other girl who just recently really had an improvement, Sydney Lukes.
Sure. So. When it comes to recruiting base, where do you recruit? Where do you go and try to find your runners that you want to bring in for cross country? I'm sure it's tied to track as well. When you look for distance runners in cross country, how does recruiting work for that here at Marian?
I try to find athletes that are going to really help the program, really dedicate themselves to it. I do stick to Wisconsin. We've got a lot of good runners here in Wisconsin, but I go all over the place. So really, I'm not picky about where I go. I'm more picky about who I choose.
Sure. And when you try to sell Marian and it's a new program, what do you tell the men and the women that you would like to bring to campus?
Yeah, we're a very private school with a family feel to it. That's going to make you feel welcome. That's what I tell them.
Sure. And I think you get basketball recruiting, football recruiting is very high profile. So do you show up at like big cross country meets and such? Is that how you recruit, or how has recruiting changed in the last few years and such? How do you go about finding athletes?
It's a lot of web searching, and then I do show up to the big meets. Last weekend, I was at Black River Falls at their sectional there, and I was walking around talking to the teams, recruiting from the team that I used to run on, Adams Friendship. They've got some pretty good runners on there this year. Westfield has some good contenders that I'm recruiting from. And just kind of hitting up the meets where I know I'm going to have a lot of success.
Coach, what's your background? If people haven't met you before, just how'd you end up at Marian University?
Well, I actually went to school right next door to Marian. So I went to Ripon, and when the position came up at Marian, I checked out the school, and it seemed like the perfect fit for me. It's very familiar to what I'm used to. It's in an area I love, and the staff here is great.
Is coaching one of the things that you've always had in the back of your mind, something you wanted to do? Do you want to make this a career choice?
It's actually what I've always wanted to do. I just wasn't sure I'd be able to do it this early.
Sure. Now, when I look at Marian University, Coach, it's very, very flat. I know cross country, you get out there, and it's your hillies, and so obviously depending on the course and such, it's very different with elevation changes and such. How do you go about training here in Fond du Lac on the cross country on the men's and the women's side?
Well, the flatness does make for a very speedy workout. When we need some elevation change, there's a nice big hill behind St. Mary Springs High School, and another one over connected to one of the parks that we just run up and down like crazy.
Sure. So coming up, you have the NAC championships coming up this weekend, and then in a couple weeks you have the NCAA regionals. What should people look for from the Sabres in those two big events?
Should look for some really great performances out of Isaac and Alyssa. Alyssa came very close to being third team All-State at the private college championships. She was 30th. If she'd have taken 21st, she'd have medaled and gotten recognition for that. So we can expect a very good performance out of her at the NAC.
So that should be. How about the NAC in general when it comes to cross country? I mean, are they pretty strong?
They are very strong. Yep. MSOE always runs really, really well.
Now, in the spring, on the other side as well, you mentioned, the track and field as well ties into cross country. What's the state of the track program here at Marian?
Track program is on the rise. I mean, coming in again, only a few athletes. We're up to over 20 now. So, I mean, that's a great improvement.
Is there a long-term goal for numbers that maybe you'd like to have in the track program at Marian University?
Yeah, I'd like to see us up to 50, 60, 70 athletes. And we're halfway there, and we started out at 10. So,
how do you go about picking events that you guys compete in, both track and cross country? Is that one of those things where you have to find certain events because you don't host any events? Obviously, you're always traveling. And how do you go about finding which ones are a good fit for your school?
Right now, I'm trying to build the track program around cross country, just because it's very easy with the equipment we have, and the fact that all the cross country runners can convert over to track and field and make a winning program. But in the grand scheme of things, you can only have a certain amount of runners in each event and everything like that. So trying to fill all the spots we don't have filled yet, you need a certain amount of sprinters, a certain amount of distance runners, throwers, jumpers, everything like that. And once we've got all those spots filled with people that can score points, then you'll start seeing the winning coming.
Sure, and circling back to cross country, what does it take to build a winning cross country program? Is it just numbers that you have to get in there, or what does it take?
Numbers helps because it drives everybody to run harder on the team. But you need a couple really high-quality athletes with a lot of depth behind them. That's
Sure.
what you really need.
Corey, where do you see the program coming in the next 5 to 10 years?
Oh, I see us hitting the middle portion of the conference and really surprising a lot of people.
Well, Corey, I appreciate you giving us some time here today, and good luck coming up at the ENAC Championships and then the NCAA Regionals. It's Marian University cross-country coach Corey Zimmerman. Good luck to him coming up here, and we'll be back with more on the Marian Sports Network Marian Coaches Show on the Marian Sports Network.
Here is my handle and here is my spout.
When I get all steamed up, then I shout.
Tip me over and pour me out. Oh. The smallest moments can have the biggest impact on a child's life. Cheers. Take time to be a dad today.
And welcome back to the Marian University Sabre Coaches Show on the Marian Sports Network. I am Wade Bates, and right now we're going to bring in Craig Peltonen, talk a little Marian men's soccer. Coach Peltonen, before we kind of talk about this year's Marian squad, the first thing I wanted to ask is, you've been here, this is your 29th season at Marian University. When you first walked on campus, did you think that you would be here at the same spot 29 years later?
Probably not. There's no doubt early on in my coaching career I interviewed at a couple other places. But when I first came here, I'll give you a little history lesson about myself. I went to school at Indiana University, a large Big Ten school, and then I did my grad work at UW-Milwaukee, a large urban campus in Milwaukee, and then I came up to interview at Marian because a position was open, a full-time position, and it was like, holy cow, is this place small? I mean, think about, we didn't have the Todd Ware Alumni Center, the Stayers Center, Lenz Fieldhouse, the soccer fields, the baseball stadium, the townhouses at the time, the courtyard buildings. We didn't have any of that, so there weren't very many buildings. But the people at Marian are kind of what makes the difference. And so I've been to a lot of schools. My kids have gone to colleges and come back to Marian, and I've heard it all. People talk about community at their schools, but Marian is truly a community, and so that's kind of what keeps me here and what I really enjoy about Marian.
And 29 years later, you're still plugging along. How has soccer changed from when you first started in the coaching business to where it is now in 2016?
Wow, it's become much more competitive. We were kind of cutting edge at one time. We were probably the first school that hired full-time coaches that were just coaches and had some secondary duties, but primarily our jobs were as coaches. And then everyone kind of followed that and then got even bigger by hiring full-time assistant coaches, and facilities have changed. I mean, we have one of the best grass stadium-type soccer-specific facilities, which will soon be shared with lacrosse, which is awesome. But other universities and colleges have followed suit and have built their own kind of facilities. And so, where once we were cutting edge, we're battling with other schools to kind of keep up with the Joneses.
I was gonna say it had to have been big when Marian did hire your full-time coaches, as you mentioned, because a lot of times you were a coach, but then maybe your real full-time job ended up being in the university doing something else. But now you still do have other responsibilities, but being able to concentrate on coaching and finding student athletes and such must make it a little easier on your job, at least on the field and in the department.
It's easier. It's beneficial to the students. We're there for them not only as coaches but as mentors, as advisors, to keep them on track not only athletically but also academically.
Coach, looking at your roster, you expand across the country when it comes to Marian University soccer. How do you attack recruiting? How do you go about bringing student athletes to campus? What's your philosophy?
Well, the philosophy has changed a little bit because we have a brand new full-time assistant coach, Luke Goodnetter, who kind of his main responsibility has been recruiting now. But I will say we have a guy from New York. We've had a couple from New York, but primarily we try to stay in Wisconsin and the Chicagoland area. That's our primary recruiting areas. There's excellent soccer in Wisconsin. There's excellent soccer in Chicago. Chicago being a large metropolitan area, just lots of clubs, high schools to draw from. So that's kind of our focus. It doesn't mean we don't try to find players from other places, but that's our, and we've had some luck, and that's our primary area.
You mentioned New York City. I mentioned New York City. Ramon Sutherland from New York City, from what I understood when you talked about senior day, that he comes from a pretty prominent soccer school in New York. Just how did he end up finding him, and how did he end up finding Marian?
We had our former president, Steve DeSalvo, was from New York, knew a coach there, and suggested that I recruit some guys from there. And so I took a recruiting trip out there, left at like 7 in the morning, came back at 7 at night. It was a one-day shot. Went to the high school, met the coach, met some of the players, went to watch one of their games, rode on the L train with about 7 other, or I don't know if Chicago it's called the L, I'm not sure, the subway system.
The subway system, yeah.
I've never seen a high school team that hasn't taken a school bus or something to a game, and here these guys are taking the commuter train to get to their high school game. It was an unusual experience, and so then I got to watch them play, and it just kind of worked out with Ramon. We were a good fit for him, and we had another player, Isaiah Marshall, that came for a couple of years, and it just didn't quite work out for him, but for Ramon it's worked out quite well.
So what do you say when a coach from a university in Wisconsin comes to New York City and you walk into the school? What do you say about Marian University to say, hey, we have soccer, we're interested in bringing you here?
I tell them, we ask about what they're interested in academically, and hopefully we can be a match in that area. Small classes, personal attention. It's like being at home, kind of a home away from home. And we think they'll get quality coaching, play a good schedule, do a little traveling. So we kind of highlight all those kind of things.
You also have a pipeline to Cicero, Illinois. I know since we started broadcasting the games on the Marian Sports Network, I literally get 15 to 20 emails from people watching on the Marian Sports Network from Cicero, Illinois. How did that pipeline begin for Marian soccer?
One of our former players, one of our former captains, Lupe Hernandez, who's from Sheboygan Falls, was our assistant coach for a year, and he was helping with recruiting. He helped throughout his college days with recruiting. He's a great guy, very good personality, and so he went to a showcase out in Iowa, saw a team play, liked this defender, Manny Zapata, and we ended up getting Manny to come to school. And Manny was our first guy from the Cicero area, and then Manny the next year told me, hey, you need to look at this guy, which was Alonzo Fragoso. And so we went and watched him play in what was called the Pepsi Cup final in where the Chicago Fire plays. I'm trying to think of the name of their stadium. I can't think of it off the top of my head. But, they had the final there, and Alonzo was playing, and we ended up getting Alonzo. And then Alonzo kind of brought some other guys. He's that kind of personality, and he brought some other guys, whether it was Ian Chacon or Benny Fabian or, Marco Romero. He just kind of has a following. And
you have to feel proud, though, when you know that your players are recruiting your program and finding kids saying, hey, come, it's a good thing they got going here at Marian academically and with the soccer program, and you got to come play up here. You got to feel good about that, knowing you built something where the players are buying in that much that they want to bring other players to the program.
Well, we do feel good about it. I learned that, when I was at Indiana University. That was something a famous college coach, one of the better college coaches in the country of all time, at least at the soccer level, but maybe overall, Jerry Yeagley, he did that a lot. He asked his players, well, what do you think of this guy, and who do you think can help us? And so we do that a lot. I mean, it's not the only way we identify players, but it is, if you have guys who like the school, you try to find guys they know who also may love.
Coach, one of the things I noticed too on senior day is sometimes senior day, you have a senior day and they just say, hey, here's player A, wave to the crowd at senior day, thanks for coming. You take a lot of time putting together, and it seems like you write something from the heart to talk about each of your players that have committed to this program, and you send them off on their senior day festivities with a nice kind of tribute.
Yeah, I don't know how long ago we started that. I think maybe it was a while ago when maybe we didn't have a winning season. And so, I mean, what stats do you really report when you don't have this winning season? And so I thought it made more sense if and it kind of is who we are as well at Marian. It's a more personal relationship. And I honestly believe one of the fringe benefits of being a coach at a school like Marian is seeing kids come in as freshmen and what they're like, and then seeing them leave as seniors, and they're different people. And I really enjoy that, and I like to talk about that a little bit. And what's even more so is I like seeing them when they become alumni, and I still have relationships with a lot of the guys, 10, 15 years, 20 years later, because, I enjoy their company.
Coach, as we tape this, you have one game left in the regular season. You finish up on Wednesday night. I mean, I think you'll probably hope your record a little bit better this year, but just your thoughts on this year's squad.
Well, the thoughts are it was a disappointing season. I mean, in all honesty, it was disappointing, Wade. I thought our record would have been better. Last year we were 11-3-1 going into our final 3 games. We ended up losing all 3. Disappointingly as well, but we finished 11-6-1. We lost 4 guys, but we returned the vast majority of our players, and I really thought with a junior senior kind of powered team that we would have done a lot better. But games are funny. I don't know. Al Pacino was in this movie Every Given Sunday, and he does his speech at the end. You got to claw for every inch, and games are like that sometimes. It's a post here, it's a crossbar there, it's a foul here, and they all have to come together. And this year, for all kinds of reasons, and a lot of it is on us, as a staff, as a team, it's on us, but things just didn't come together like I was hoping or thought they would have.
Well, Coach, it's been fun getting to watch the Marian men's soccer this season as I kind of came on board here on the Marian Sports Network. It's been fun getting to know you and learning the game of soccer a little bit more, and good luck in that season finale on Wednesday, and who knows what happens. You still mathematically could end up in the postseason.
It's possible. Wade, we appreciate all you do for us. We really enjoy it.
It's Marian men's soccer coach Craig Peltonen as we are at Fat Joe's for the Marian Coaches Show on the Marian Sports Network.
When I was 6, I had one thing on my mind. When I was 6, my days were spent playing basketball every chance I could. When I was 6, my dream was to make it to the NBA. When I was 6, my mom had a stroke.
I'm Paul George, and I want you to learn the signs of a stroke fast. F-A-S-T.
F, face drooping. A, arm weakness. S, speech difficulty. T, time to call 911. Because the sooner they get to the hospital, the sooner they'll get treatment. And that can make a remarkable difference in their recovery.
Protect the ones you love.
Spot a stroke. F-A-S-T. Fast.
And welcome back to Fat Joe's in historic downtown Fond du Lac for the Marian University Sabre Coaches Show on the Marian Sports Network. And right now we're going to talk a little Marian University men's hockey because Lincoln Gwynn's squad opens up their season this weekend, a home and home with St. Norbert. Saturday night they're at home with the defending, I guess, national runners-up. Coach Gwynn, first of all, it's your first a year at the helm as head coach of the Sabres. How's that transition been for you this year after spending 1 year as an assistant in the program?
Transition hasn't been extremely hard. I guess the office work is, it's a little bit different than what I was, I guess, taking care of last year. But when it comes to hockey, I guess the good part was former head coach Eric Largent and myself, it was kind of a plan put in place on how we were going to play, how we were going to recruit, and it was kind of 50-50 on that. So, to me taking over, I've been fortunate that it's been fairly easy. But, we changed a few things, learned how some things didn't work from last year and how we can change things and implement new things for this year.
Well, Lincoln, how did you end up at Marian University? How did you end up as an assistant last year?
Geez. Trying to think back here. I know. So basically, Eric and myself, the former head coach, he had asked me to coach with him my second year coaching ever. So I had left El Paso, Texas, where I was coaching juniors, went back to Minnesota, where I was from, and coached with him. And we were fortunate to have a really good year that year, made it to a national championship game. And then we kind of went our separate ways and went to the North American League in La Crosse, Wisconsin with the Coulee Region Chill, and then was there for 2 years, and Eric had the opportunity here, and I thought it was a good thing to go back and learn some new stuff from because he kind of went to some other teams and got to pick up some new things. So went back with a friend and had fun doing it last year.
In the hockey business, if you want to get into the coaching part of it, is it one of those things where you're going to end up moving all around the country till you find a spot that's maybe a landing point for you?
Yeah, I guess, there's a few different ways you can go about it. You can be fortunate enough to be a really sweet hockey player, at a Division I level and know people and get something right away, or you can take the route like myself where you're a pretty average hockey player, maybe even below average, and you have to work your way up. So for myself, I was very fortunate to be around some great people that kind of mentored me, and I was fortunate enough to have some sort of successes where I was at and move up to some levels.
Sure, you mentioned your time in El Paso. I was at the Sun Bowl in El Paso one year when the Badgers played UCLA, and some people think, where's El Paso? I had a great time in El Paso. I think that's a great city.
It is. I mean, there's when I first heard that, do you want to go down to El Paso to coach? I had no idea where it was. I just knew it was somewhere by Juarez, Mexico, where they have all of those, the cartel problems. But, did some research on some things and, before I committed to make sure that it was a place that, I could see myself being in for, at least a year. So, I was fortunate enough to have the opportunity down there.
And I remember, though, when I got off the plane, you think Texas, you think hot. I remember it was snowing when I got off the plane in the middle of December to preview that Sun Bowl game. But then it was like 60, 65 when it came to game day. So the weather, the climate can change in a hurry.
Oh, yeah. I mean, just the elevation, you're still in the mountains a little bit too. But, it can get extremely hot or get extremely cold. And the time when I was down there, it happened to have snowed as well. And they're shutting down streets, they're shutting down highways, and here's me driving my car with Minnesota license plates, and I'm like, this is easy. Like, let's just get everybody out of the way, and I'll lead the way kind of thing. But,
Sure. Talking about Sabre hockey, last year was kind of can I call it a breakthrough season for Marian hockey on the national scene where you guys kind of burst into the rankings and had a pretty good year? How big was last year for the program?
I think it just propelled us to another level. And, the previous coaching staff that was here before us, I think, did a great job of getting some recruits to come in, and fill some holes that they needed. And it was some transition for some of the guys because, I guess for even some of, our seniors or even our juniors, this is their third coach in 3 years. So, including myself. So, there's been some transition for some of the guys with systematic things. So last year, it was a process. And, our guys did a really good job of making sure they bought into, what needed to be taken care of to move forward.
Sure, Coach. How many guys do you bring back from last year's Marian University team to this year's squad?
We had a good core that's coming back here. So, we know that, we lost 3 seniors that were up front as forwards, Devin Sturmer, Warren Carter, Ben Morgan, 2 of them being captains. Sturmer did a good job of putting the puck in the net, and, Ben Morgan and Warren Carter had their roles on the teams as well. So we knew we had some holes to fill up front, and we had a nice transfer come from Concordia. we wanted to upgrade a little bit on the back end, and we made sure in our recruiting that we took care of those things. And we have some good guys that come in, but again, it's still a process. Nobody's owed anything when they come in, and they got to earn their way into the lineup with things.
How about some of the returning people that you're bringing back? And can I talk about some of the people maybe going to lean on that have experience from last year's team?
Yeah, I know. Up front, Derek Thorogood. He's going to lead the charge up front with Hunter Stewart. Brody Jameson was out for half the year last year, but, came back and put up some points for the second half of the year. Jake Howie's another good forward that we have coming back on the back end. We got Derek Pearl and Gianni Mangoni combination back there. Mangoni was a sweet addition for the program last year, being friends with some of the guys from junior hockey, and it was a good transition for him. One of our other captains, Scott Milnthorpe, will be back too. So, we got some good veteran leadership on the back end, and again, it's just making sure that we saw from last year, knowing against St. Norbert's in playoffs, that we needed some guys that could come in and push some people around. I think we got pushed around a little bit too much in playoffs, and we had the skill sets to do things, but again, it's playoff hockey, and that's the mentality for 25 games through. So we had to make sure we brought in the right guys for that, and with a good mix of our returners.
Do you like your goaltending situation coming into the season?
Yeah, we got Mike Baldwin coming back. It's his senior year. He was a rock star for us in net last year, and Michael Goodmanson too, so we got him coming back as well. Goody played the majority of games his freshman year, it sounded like, and now we have a really good tandem. So I don't think it really matters who's in net that night. It's who's going to give us the best opportunity to win, and I know both of those guys can do that.
Baldwin is one of your guys too last season that got all region recognition as well for the season that he had last year. Ranking wise for you guys, is it important? Our coaches always kind of poo-poo rankings and such, but how important is it for the Marian program? Last year you cracked into the rankings, and this year even in the preseason polls you are ranked, I believe, 15 in the first poll this season.
Yep. No, the poll just came out today for USCHO, and we were fortunate to be recognized for that. Last year breaking through the scenes, nationally, I think it's huge for the guys that are a part of the process, because you put in so much work, and it's finally good to get recognized for the things that you've done to get to that point. And, from our standpoint as a coaching staff, it gives a little more confidence to the guys. You got to steer it in the right direction, but, when it comes to recruiting as well, it's big for us to make sure that we can sell those kinds of things, and we're not just some ordinary school that's just gonna put guys in a locker room and just play hockey for the sake of playing hockey. Like, we're here for a reason, and we want to keep pushing forward through the process.
Sure, and I'm sure, like you said, you mentioned having the rankings there. Kids kind of know what's going on in hockey, and if you make the phone call, or one of your assistants makes the phone call or makes a contact, and they search and they see whether it be number 5 in the country or 15 in the country, they're like, oh, it immediately gives your program legitimacy to them.
Absolutely it does. It's another thing for them to look at and get excited about.
How about your recruiting class coming in? You mentioned you look to recruit in specific areas. Just what are your thoughts in general on the recruiting and the guys you brought in this year? And you think there's an opportunity for them to contribute?
Yeah, I know for sure that some of the guys will get opportunities to contribute. Some guys more than others. Some guys know that they might be a little bit of a project, but they're going to contribute at some point in their years at Marian. But yeah, we saw what we needed to bring in, and, I thought we did a pretty good job with that. But, first and foremost, we want good hockey players, right? But, the biggest thing for us is we want guys that are going to be committed to our process, guys that are good people. And then in their years at Marian, when they're done, they're leaving here, and they're better people, they're better brothers, they're better sons, whatever the case may be. We want them to be big contributors to the real world after.
Big measuring stick to open up the season. We mentioned a home and home with St. Norbert this weekend, the defending national runners-up. You go to their place on Friday night. They come here for the opener on Saturday night. Just your thoughts on what does St. Norbert bring to the table? What do they bring back, and what's their scouting report as we head into the opening weekend?
St. Norbert's, I know they're going to come, and they're going to punch us in the face. They're a typical team that likes to play hard. What they're going to give every time, and the coaching staff over there, they do a really good job of getting that out of their guys. And I think for us, there's a little bit of sour taste on how the season was ended for us last year. So the guys know there's unfinished business that needs to be solved. But at the end of the day, they're still the second best team in the rankings here to start off the season with. So we're excited to see where we match up against a team that's so highly touted, and and we got a ton of respect for that opponent.
Do you feel like on your side of the division, you're a team that compete for that division championship in the NCHA?
Yeah, I think, from our side of things, I think the biggest thing is, yes, Marian has gotten better, but I know these other programs have gotten better. It doesn't matter who it is. Like, you can't have any off nights, and whether it's our side of the division or it's the other side of the division, when we play crossovers, again, it doesn't matter. It's always going to be a good hockey game.
So the opener is going to be Saturday night. We need everybody to come out for St. Norbert. We need a huge crowd for that, get the home field advantage and some home cooking there as they come to town for your first home match. I want to ask you, too, about a week from Saturday night. Lawrence has, I guess you have a 2-game set with Lawrence, and it's military night coming up on the Saturday night, November 4th. Can you kind of talk about what's going on with that night with Marian at the blue line?
Yeah, so, it's kind of been a process that's kind of, been in place for the past few years, but, for the progress for our program moving forward, it's making sure that we do our best to recognize, any organization that has to do with military services. But for us, that we're working with is Salute the Troops. So we had a T-shirt sale, a T-shirt jersey sale for our school. We also offered different packages and whatnot, and we worked out a thing with our college here to make sure that there's an opportunity for somebody that was getting pulled out of a hat to have some sort of shot on the ice to have a chance to earn free credits from Marian. So we got some tailgating packages that we're working on, or that have worked on, that are in place. So I think it's going to be, it's a good thing for our team to be a part of, and it's a good thing for the university to be a part of.
So if people go to saberathletics.com, they can find out more information on Military Night. Lincoln, good luck this season. I know we'll talk to you on future Marian University coaches shows.
Absolutely. Thanks for having me here.
Thank you so much. That's Marian University head men's hockey coach Lincoln Gwynn. Again, they open up this weekend against the national runner-up St. Norbert. Friday night on the road, Saturday night at the Blue Line at 7 o'clock, and we'll have that broadcast live on the Marian Sports Network. We're going to wrap things up on our first ever coaches show on the Marian Sports Network from Fat Joe's right after this.
Listen up, Energy Hogs. We got a real porker of a house here. Get in there and waste some energy.
There's no insulation, boss. It's hog heaven.
Leaky windows, too. This is gonna be a breeze. Perfect. Go wild and waste some wattage.
Time to tan. Oh, there's hot water for just one pair of pants. My kind of place.
Wow, this thing's so old it's gonna take me hours to get dry.
Keep wasting. They'll never know what hit them till they get the energy bill.
What the? Boss, they're home, and they've got energy-efficient bulbs.
You've got the power to get rid of energy hogs. You can help your parents add insulation, put in Energy Star appliances, and lots of other things to make your home hog-free. Find out how at energyhog.org and play fun games, too.
Oh, retreat! Retreat!
Go to energyhog.org and get the energy hogs out of your home.
Hey, wait for me!
And welcome back to Fat Joe's as we are wrapping up this first edition of the Marian University Coaches Show on the Marian Sports Network. I am Wade Bates, and right now we're going to bring in Director of Athletic Communications, Denny Driscoll. Denny, kind of in one of those transition areas when it comes to athletics at Marian University. The fall sports winding down, the winter sports kind of really getting into gear this year. So for a guy like you, you're doing end of the year stuff, and you're doing kind of previews for different programs. So it's a busy time, isn't it?
Yeah, in the business they call it the dreaded crossover season. And at Marian it's a little bit different because we have hockey and basketball. At other institutions it would be football. So I think that kind of replaces it. But, it's a great challenge. But, we make it work.
Well, Wednesday night we have Marian women's and men's soccer. The men on the road wrapping up their season at Wisconsin Lutheran. That's a 7 o'clock start. The men still mathematically alive. If the Marian men can beat Wisconsin Lutheran and Rockford knocks off Aurora, Marian would qualify with that 6th spot in the postseason. So, and they're actually going to know what they're playing for because that Aurora-Rockford game is at 2 o'clock in the afternoon. So we'll have that. Marian women wrap up their regular season against Wisconsin Lutheran. That is on Wednesday night as well, and that'll be on the Marian Sports Network at Smithfield. 6:50, Jillian Saberlick will join us for the pregame show, and then 7 o'clock they'll get things going on the pitch right there. And then the winter sports get going, as you mentioned. Volleyball first wraps up on Friday night at Ripon, but then hockey, women's hockey on Friday night, and the men's hockey will be at home on Saturday.
It's definitely a busy week in Sabre Athletics, and Wednesday it's also senior night as 4 seniors will play their final game at Smithfield, so there's going to be some emotions on the field for that as well. And this weekend, it's going to be busy. I mean, we invite everyone to come out to Blue Line and come out to Smith and see what our student athletes have to offer.
We always say if you can't make it or something's going on, you can always head to saberathletics.com and you click on Inside Marian Athletics, I think it is, and then it says Marian Sports Network right there, and you can find the broadcasts. Basically, all the home events we'll have on video here, and it should be a good time for that. Again, hockey season kicking off on Saturday night. We need a big crowd out there for that one with St. Norbert coming to town. We mentioned it with Coach Gwynn that they have they're the defending national runners-up.
Yes, they are. St. Norbert is one of the premier Division III hockey programs in the country, and last year we split with them first weekend of the year, and there's no reason why the Sabres can't make some noise again. You know, it's a building of a great program here.
Well, Dennis, thank you so much for giving us the time here today. We thank Fat Joe's for hosting us here on the first ever Marian University Sabre Coaches Show. And we thank cross-country coach Corey Zimmerman, men's hockey coach Lincoln Gwynn, men's soccer coach Craig Peltone, and athletic director Jason Bartelt. I am Wade Bates. Again, saberathletics.com is where you can go to find out all the information going on in Marian University when it comes to athletics. Again, you've been listening and watching to the Marian Sports Network.